and welcome to The Watchman. Dialogue and diplomacy. These are the buzzwords today here inside the Beltway when it comes to rogue regimes and terror groups. For example, the Obama administration is convinced that it can talk Iran out of acquiring a nuclear weapon. Kill those sanctions, it tells Congress. Quit your saber rattling, it tells Israel. We can talk to Iran. We can reason with them. Hassan Rouhani, the new Iranian president, has rode in on a white horse, and peace is at hand. Then there is the Muslim Brotherhood. They're moderate Islamists, says our government. We can work with the Brotherhood and use them as a counterweight against the really bad guys in Al-Qaeda, even though the Brotherhood spawned Al-Qaeda and Hamas and the entire modern Islamic jihadist movement, which includes the Taliban. You guessed it. The Obamis think we can talk to them too, even as the Taliban is amputating limbs, brutalizing women, killing U.S. troops, and training child suicide bombers. Speaking of suicide bombers, don't be surprised if sometime in the not-so-distant future, the Obama administration engages in open dialogue with the terror groups Hezbollah and Hamas. After all, if you're talking to Iran, why wouldn't you talk to its proxies? We're pushing the reset button with the bad guys, folks. Hey, just look at how well it's worked with Vladimir Putin.
Crimea is our common legacy and a major factor of stability in the region. It's a strategic territory, and it should, of course, belong to a country that is stable and sustainable. And it can only be Russia today.
Crimea, a river, President Obama. Well, Michael Rubin is the author of a great new book on this subject. It's called Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engaging Rogue Regimes. Rubin is a former Pentagon official and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. I sat down with him recently to discuss his must-read new book. Take a look. Michael, I think a great place to start right now, a very timely issue, is Vladimir Putin and Russia. We tried to set the reset button with Vladimir Putin. It's kind of blowing up in our face right now. Where are we going wrong with Vladimir Putin? Because it seems like he's doing whatever he wants to do right now, and he's really laughing at the U.S. in many ways.
Well, he is laughing because the worst we're doing to him is putting him on double secret probation. And in effect, if you have Neville Chamberlain going up against Machiavelli, Chamberlain's not going to win. And that's what we need to recognize with regard to Vladimir Putin, that we can't look into his eyes and see a soul. We may want to be soft, we may want to repeat the mantra, the Cold War is over, but what matters is what he thinks, and we have to play the game on his terms if we're going to win.
Yeah, and one of his, I guess you would say one of his friends in the political arena has been the Iranian regime.
Indeed.
Putin has worked with them. And Iran right now, Michael, I look at this whole reset button and President Obama's goal, which he announced, as you outline in the book, really back in 2007. I'm going to talk to Iran, North Korea, Syria, Cuba. I'm open to engaging these rogue regimes. And it seems like another tactical move by the president that's really blowing up, no pun intended, in our faces is this Iranian nuclear program and his efforts to engage the mullahs. Michael, why can't dialogue and diplomacy with this Iranian regime work?
You know, when Hillary Clinton became Secretary of State, she chided the Republicans. She said, look, if you're not going to talk to your enemies, who are you going to talk to? And pointed out that Ronald Reagan sat down with Mikhail Gorbachev. What she misunderstood, however, was for Reagan, that was the end of the process, not the beginning. It came after a multi-year military buildup to set the right circumstances. Unfortunately, today in the State Department, leverage has become a dirty word, and that ultimately is where we're going wrong on Iran. If I may, in the year before negotiations began, the Iranian economy shrank 5.4%. In order to get the Iranians to the table, we've given them $20 billion in sanctions relief and new investment. That's like giving a 5-year-old dessert and then asking him to sit for a spinach.
Right, and you have an entire chapter on Iran. You're an expert on Iran,
Yeah.
Michael. Entire chapter on really the history of engagement with this Iranian regime dating back from Jimmy Carter to
Right.
today with the Iranian nuclear weapons program, which seems to be reaching endgame. Why is this diplomatic obsession so dangerous when it comes to that Iranian nuclear threat?
Well, ultimately, when we talk about Iran's nuclear program, we got to be more precise. It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' nuclear program. Now, here's the scenario where the idea of deterrence and containment break down. What if you have an uprising like you did in 2009, but instead of the security forces putting it down, they join in? So picture now Romania in 1989 with the fall of Ceausescu. Well, in a situation like that, the command, control, and custody over Iran's nuclear bomb is going to be with the Revolutionary Guard. If the regime is collapsing around them, and given that they're an ideological organization, what's to stop them from launching, knowing that the regime is gone in 12 hours? The people who say, well, the regime's not suicidal, don't take into account that nightmare situation.
You know, Michael, you lay out in devastating detail in the book how engagement, dialogue, diplomacy with these rogue regimes has failed. Why do Western leaders seem to be hell-bent on engaging evil folks who have no desire to negotiate?
Well, Eric, I spent about a third of my time working with the U.S. military, and as a civilian, one of the things that astounded me when I first started doing it was simply that our men and women in uniform spend more time in the classroom identifying their mistakes than they do in the field, because they want to be better soldiers, sailors, and pilots. Not once in the last half century has our State Department conducted a lessons learned exercise. Albert Einstein had a quip. He called insanity doing the same action repeatedly, but expecting different results. Under that definition, there's a lot of American diplomats who need to call their psychiatrist.
Talking to the Taliban is the title of one of the chapters, talking to terrorists. And you quote John Brennan, our CIA director, who said, look, Hezbollah has a social wing. They're not all just jihad. There's some moderate elements there. Why is it a big mistake trying to engage the likes of the Taliban, Hezbollah, Hamas, which are terrorist organizations?
Okay, well, first of all, you legitimize the organizations when you negotiate with them. Second of all, there's so many different organizations that don't come to the table. If they learn that the way to get to the table is to blow up buses, then that's what they're going to do. You don't want to create an incentive for bad behavior, which is what we tend to do with terrorist groups. And frankly, with regimes like North Korea and Iran, it's what we do with them as well.
Yeah, what can we learn from the North Korea example, Michael? You know, Bill Clinton went to North Korea a few years ago. They have not changed their behavior one bit. And it seems that our diplomatic experience with North Korea in the 1990s kind of set a bad template maybe for today and how we're dealing with Iran. Do you see that parallel at all?
Well, not only do I see that parallel, but when you actually look at what the Iranians say in Farsi among themselves, their nuclear negotiators will hold up North Korea as an example to emulate rather than a rogue regime to condemn. And so certainly our adversaries are learning lessons from our other adversaries far and wide. It gives new meaning to the idea of an axis of evil. But when it comes to North Korea, look, you got to draw the line. You can't reward bluster. And one item which comes out in all the different chapters with regard to rogue regimes, our intelligence community and our diplomats like to whitewash these rogues in order to give greater encouragement to diplomacy. The canary in the coal mine is actually oftentimes religious liberty. Because if these rogue leaders, whether they're killing Christians in the Middle East, whether they're imprisoning Christians on the Korean Peninsula, they're still rogue if they're conducting that sort of behavior. If you really want to identify change, look at how they treat their minorities.
The president has made this one of the pillars of his foreign policy, to engage these unsavory regimes. How has he taken this concept of engaging rogue regimes to a new and scary level in your view?
Well, ultimately, he's guilty of projection and misunderstanding multiculturalism. Multiculturalism isn't simply about appreciating our differences. It's not simply walking into a sushi restaurant and ordering a mojito. Fundamentally, we need to recognize that our adversaries think in very, very different ways. And one of the things that most concerns me, when a president loses political credibility, that gets restored when the next president gets elected. But international credibility, that doesn't get restored. We're going to be picking up the pieces for decades to come.
Michael, thank you so much. Excellent.
Pleasure talking with you, Eric.
Anytime. The book is called Dancing with the Devil, The Perils of Engaging Rogue Regimes. You can buy it anywhere books are sold, from coast to coast, and Amazon.com. Pick it up. It's an important book. Up next, what happens when a notorious anti-Semite discovers that he's Jewish? Find out after the break.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, Did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh, yes. And that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
Millions of Americans with an ostomy live their lives to the fullest every day. And over the last 10 years, thousands have chosen Liberator Medical as their caring and reliable resource for ostomy supplies. Liberator Medical is a nationally accredited Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance provider, so we can handle all your Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance paperwork and billing. And Liberator Medical has been chosen as a preferred supplier by all the leading ostomy manufacturers, including Coloplast, Hollister, Convatec, and Generics. We supply all these leading ostomy brands so you can always get the ostomy supplies and accessories you want and trust. And all of our ostomy care specialists are product certified by the manufacturers. Shipping is free and discreetly delivered right to your door. Unhappy with your present ostomy supplier? Call Liberator Medical and ask about our free ostomy sampling program. We also offer catheters and urological supplies.
Call 1-800-513-3076. That's 1-800-513-3076.
Welcome back. What do you do when you learn you are not the person you thought you were? When you learn you are the very thing you hated? It was a question that a former anti-Semite named Shanad Zaghetti was confronted with, one that led to an amazing transformation.
He was once a rising star in one of Hungary's largest and most controversial political parties, Jobbik. Jobbik has been labeled fascist and anti-Semitic. Shanad Zaghetti, still in his 20s, was on a trajectory to lead this party someday.
I joined Jobbik in 2003 when the party foundations were being built. I was a member for 9 years. I was vice president for 6 years and in the European Parliament since 2009.
Zaghetti has also been branded an anti-Semite, although in our interview he disagreed.
When I entered Jobbik, I was kind of indifferent toward Jews. I didn't care about Jews. I didn't care about the Holocaust. I didn't consider the Holocaust as a tragedy for the Hungarian people. I read a lot of anti-Semitic literature.
Still, Zaghetti was a leader of a party almost universally labeled anti-Semitic, and his public statements showed that at the very least, he still didn't like Jews and was suspicious of them. But that would all change when Shanad Zaghetti would learn something about himself that turned his world upside down. Shanad Zaghetti was a Jew. Rumors had begun swirling on the internet that Zaghetti had Jewish roots, so he went to talk with his 94-year-old grandmother, who had never said she was Jewish.
And she opened up and she talked about her life and how she was sent to Auschwitz and how our whole family was annihilated.
How did this change your view of the Holocaust?
I was shocked. First of all, because I realized the Holocaust really happened.
Not sure what he should do next, he first tried to hide his Jewishness and act like nothing had happened, but eventually realized he could not stay in Jobbik.
I realized I can't take part in any organization that has anything to do with anti-Semitism.
So what do you do when you discover that you are one of the very things that you hated? For Shanad Zaghetti, you change. Zaghetti contacted local Rabbi Shlomo Koves, who first thought it was a joke.
When we met first with Shanad, I had a very mixed feelings because from one hand, I was sitting across somebody that was seen for years as one of the main figures of the Jobbik party. From the other hand, I was sitting across a broken person who has realized what he has done and who has become to a situation where he figured he has to change, but he still doesn't know how to change.
Shanad started attending synagogue and admits that at first some members treated him like a leper and would literally leave the synagogue when he walked in. But some befriended him and he started taking classes at the synagogue, learning Hebrew and the meaning of kosher and Shabbat. How much of your life has changed since you learned that you're a Jew?
It's changed everything. It's like being reborn, and the changes in my life are still happening. I had this value system until I was 30, and I had to admit that it was all wrong and had to find the will to change.
One of the high points of his new life was traveling this year to Israel with his wife and visiting the Holocaust Museum and the Wailing Wall.
When I landed in Israel, airport security asked me a lot of questions. And when the guard asked me, "Are you a Jew?" then for the first time in my life, I could say yes.
What has it been like learning how to be Jewish?
Just to feel like you're on the right way spiritually and you can get closer to God, it's a whole new feeling for me that I'm doing the right thing. My life has been full of incredible miracles, but I believe everyone who chooses the way of God sees miracles.
Dale heard CBN News in Budapest, Hungary.
Coming up, big things are about to happen in Israel. Find out more after the break.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions, just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card, just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
And welcome back. If you watch this show each week, you know that something special is going on in Israel, in Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria. Well, Ray Bentley has seen firsthand how God is moving in his land. He writes about it in his new book, The Holy Land Key, Unlocking End Times Prophecy through the lives of God's people in Israel. Here's our interview. Well, Ray, welcome to The Watchman. You know, your book, it covers so much ground, from the prophetic to on the ground in Israel, to the history of Israel and the Jewish people. But very interesting, Ray, you believe that 2014 and 2015 are going to be very significant prophetically for Israel and the world. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yes, I do think that, I know you've had on your program John Hagee.
Yes.
And these red moons that are coming on the feast days of the Lord, I believe these are definitely signs, signals. You know, in Hebrews 1:14, it talks, or in Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, God gave the firmament, the lights of the firmament, for signs and seasons. And the word signs means signals. And the seasons, I thought it meant summer, spring, winter, and fall. In reality, it speaks of the feasts of the Lord. So really in Passover this year, April 15th, is the first full blood moon, which I've learned from my Jewish brothers and believers in the Lord, that's a sign or omen about Israel. So it's coming at the beginning of their biblical calendar on Passover and in Tabernacles. And then in 2015, again, it's happening on Passover and Tabernacles. I think these are definitely signs that God is signaling for us to wake up and to look up. I think huge things are going to happen in the Middle East and in Israel. And these are signs for the church to be aware of.
Yeah. You know, Ray, you make a point in the book. You know, the Jewish people are God's chosen people, yet they're so hated. And a chapter in the book is titled, "Why Are the Chosen People So Hated?" What are your thoughts on that?
You know, when we talk about the chosen people, everybody else, goes, "Hey, what about me?" You feel jealous. But we learn from the Abrahamic covenant that God chose Abraham to bless him as his friend and to curse those who curse him. And through him, all the nations of the earth would be blessed. And so Abraham is our spiritual father in the faith. And the devil knows that. The enemy is aware of that. So he has attacked the Jewish people from the very, very beginning. And now we see as God brings the Jewish people back from the four corners of the earth back into the land, there's only two times that God said he would do this. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 11. There's not a third time. They're not going to be scattered again and then be brought back. This is the last time. And the prophecy of Ezekiel was in the latter years and in the latter days, God would bring them back as a sign of his coming. So the enemy hates God's purpose. God hates God's plan. I think the Jewish people are in many ways God's prophetic clock. And so he put a wedge in between the church and the Jewish people, and it started much earlier than I had ever realized. And I think it'll be shocking for most Christians to realize the separation that's happened between the Jewish people and Christians. Yet we're living in an hour and a time where Jews and Christians are coming together in a way like we never have before. And I'm excited to share that with people.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, Ray. It really is. And you get into the Hebraic roots of the Christian faith in your book as well. You know, one of the flashpoints right now, as the Jewish people return to their ancestral homeland, is Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, the so-called West Bank. Ray, you've spent time there. And one of the things I love about your book, Ray, is you have the on-the-ground experiences in Israel, but you spent time in Ariel, which is in Samaria. Yes. Tell us about your experiences in Samaria, in Judea, and what God is doing, how he's moving out there in that region.
That's a great question, Eric. When Abraham came to the land 4,000 years ago, he built 4 altars that are talked about in Scripture. Shechem, Bethlehem, Hebron, and Jerusalem. And in a way, that was his way of taking of possession of the property, the land that God had promised to Abraham. What most people don't realize, all 4 of those altars that he built are in what the world calls the West Bank and what the Bible calls Judea and Samaria. That's what they're fighting about right now. And I had the privilege of meeting the mayor of Ariel. Ariel is a synonym for Jerusalem. It is the largest settlement, as it's called. I don't call it a settlement, I call it a city. And half of its population of some 19,000 are Russian Jewish immigrants. And when I first went there, Mayor Ron Nachman, Jewish, he said, we need Christians and Jews to come together for this hour. Yeah. And he took us to the mountains of right there in Samaria, and we planted vineyards. And then Mayor Ron Nachman said, okay, pastor, I will be the pastor, you will be the mayor, listen to me. And he opened the Bible to Jeremiah chapter 31. And at verses 5 and 6, it talks about that they will plant vineyards in the mountains of Samaria. And then he said, it goes on to say, and the watchman will cry from Ephraim, let us go to Mount Zion and worship the Lord. He said, do you know what that word watchman is in Hebrew? And I said, no, not off the top of my head. He goes, it's Natsar. And in Hebrew, we get Nazarene from that.
Wow.
He said, you need to know, we consider the watchmen as the Christians who are coming to the mountains of Judea and Samaria and telling us, let us go and worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob together.
Wow, Ray,
he said, you were a fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
Yeah, right. That's an amazing story. And folks, that's one of many amazing stories, observations, and teachings in this book, The Holy Land Key by Ray Bentley. Be sure to pick it up. Ray, thanks so much for joining us. Keep it up, brother. Great work. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Coming up, the Iranian regime has a bullseye on the back of the U.S. So are we ready? Find out after the break.
Do you have an idea for a new product or invention? Hi, I'm George Foreman. People ask me all the time, George, how do I get my idea in front of companies? How do I get a patent? What do I do next? Do you have the same questions? I'll tell you like I'll tell them all. Call my friends at InventHelp.
InventHelp has been helping inventors for more than 30 years and has sales offices nationwide. InventHelp can provide patent referrals and submit your invention to companies who are interested in receiving new ideas. If you have an idea and want to try to patent it and submit it to companies, you should call InventHelp today for free information.
Listen, I can't guarantee a company will be interested in your idea, but I believe every inventor deserves the opportunity to step into the ring and take their best shot. Put InventHelp in your corner.
For your free inventors information, call 1-800-461-9290. That's 1-800-461-9290.
If you had a choice between going bald and a full head of hair, which would you choose? Advances in medical science have resulted in the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
Yes!
You wash it, you cut it. It's your own real, naturally growing hair. When it comes to hair restoration, no one in the world has more experience than Bosley. The results look completely natural and are affordable on nearly any budget. But the entire process can't be explained in 60 brief seconds. So to find out more about this clinically proven and permanent solution to hair loss, call now to receive your free no-obligation information kit. It'll answer all of your questions about hair loss and hair restoration. Plus, we'll also send you this $250 gift certificate just for calling. Every day you wait, you're losing more hair. So don't put it off any longer. You owe it to yourself to find out the facts. Choose hair. Choose Bosley.
Call 800-868-9957. That's 800-868-9957.
Welcome back. In the ideology of the Iranian regime, Israel is only the little Satan. It's America that is the great Satan and ultimate prize. Our friends at the Endowment for Middle East Truth have released a new ad showing that Iran is not just an Israeli problem. It's an American problem. Watch this.
Their goal by 2015? A nuclear missile that can hit U.S. shores. What's it going to take Iran's threat seriously? To realize that we are still the enemy, that we need to do something to protect ourselves, our families, our freedom. Is this what we want America to look like? Ask your senators and congressmen to do whatever it takes to stop Iran from going nuclear. Go to www.action.emitonline.org for more information on how to contact your legislators.
Folks, time is short and getting shorter. Well, thanks for joining us this week on The Watchman. Until next week, God bless you, and remember, never hold your peace. Pick up my new book, The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy, available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold from coast to coast.